Rugby league is tough enough with a full team of players, let alone when you've got two players in the sin bin at the same time, as the Bears found out on Sunday when they left Doncaster empty-handed. We've got all the reactions for you, plus a look ahead to the Battle of the South on Good Friday. This is the world's greatest podcast about the Coventry Bears. This is Bears Necessities. Yes, welcome to Bears Necessities, your favourite podcast about the Coventry Bears. We live at covbearspodcast.com. We're at covbearspodcast on Twitter. You can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify and everywhere else. And we are sponsored by York's Tim. I'm one of your hosts, Dave Musson. Joining me as always, my co-host, Craig Cathcart. Craig, how you doing?
Yes, I'm good, mate. I'm good. Didn't quite make it to the game on Sunday. It's been a bit of a stop-start. Start to the season, hasn't it? But very much looking forward to Good Friday and the next home game for the Bears.
Yes, definitely, and we will be previewing that game a little later in the show. But first, we should probably start with Sunday's game, which, Craig, you mentioned you weren't able to make it. I wasn't able to make it either, so we were both resigned to watching it from Twitter. And the game, as most of you probably know, it saw the Bears travel back to Doncaster for the second time in the space of a few weeks, and again, for the second time in the space of a few weeks, they unfortunately came back empty-handed. They ended up going down 44-18 to the Dons on Sunday. The Bears were 12-4 up at one point, tries from Jacob Jones and Peter Ryan, but then there was a flurry of yellow cards, which sort of helped see the Dons pull away. A couple of decisions seemed to go against the Bears by all accounts, and they did pull a late try back through Errol Carter to top up their tally, but the game was gone by that point. And as I say, final score was Doncaster 44, Bears 18. So we'll chat about the game in a moment, but first, here's what Bears head coach Tom Tsang had to say. It feels like a very similar conversation to one we've had a lot over the last couple of years. You know, good first half, promising position, and then combination of perhaps a bit of ill discipline, some decisions going against us, perhaps a bit of inexperience, and the game just ran away from us in the second half. I mean, how did you see it all panning out?
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Dave. It's difficult and frustrating to take, really, knowing what the talent that's in the team, and the most frustrating thing I said to the players is we are so close, and when we're playing well. And I'll come on to what that looks like in a second. But when we're playing well, we're as good, if not better, than Doncaster for that first half of the game. But when we're not, we're a long way short. And that's the point we need to get to. The likes of Doncaster will play sort of an 8 out of 10 for close to 80 minutes, whereas we can play 9 or 10 out of 10 and be better than them. But then we'll drop off to a 6 or a 7 or lower, and that's where they'll just edge ahead, and then they'll just keep that pressure on, and keep the scoreboard ticking over, and before you know it, you're sort of 3 or 4 tries down and wondering how it's got to that point. But it's probably the downside, the negative side of having a young and inexperienced team. That they're still learning how to recognise when the momentum shifted away, and how to then wrestle that momentum back. So that's stuff that we're working on very, very hard in training, and they are improving, but they're just slightly naive at times. So, for example, the majority of penalties that we gave away, and we gave away a lot, way more than we would ever want to, are in the ruck, and they're trying to implement the stuff that we're teaching them to win those contests and those collisions and those contacts, but then just either holding on for just that little split second too long, just crossing that line a little bit, or just doing it from slightly passive positions or slightly less secure positions, so the referee thinks that they're doing it illegally. Whereas the opposition, that, like I said, that little bit more experienced, and they know where that line is, and they know exactly when to get off at the right time, and that's the difference. And that's something that they can only learn by doing it and getting it wrong and learning from it. But it's obviously frustrating when it is just those fine margins that seem to be the difference.
Yeah, I mean, you touched just then on the parts of the game yesterday where the team did play well and were the better side. I mean, tell me a bit more about that. I mean, what were the positives that you're going to be taking away from this trip to Doncaster?
Well, the positives were that when in the first half an hour of the game, 35 minutes of the game, when we held onto the ball, so didn't turn over anything cheap errors, we didn't give away a penalty for the first 35 minutes, while we were still sort of, I guess, fresh and not fatigued. We were threatening with the ball. We were making really good meters with our carries, and when we had the ball, we were getting out of our half really easily. We were able to kick on the front foot, which was putting us into good field position. And when we were close to their line, we looked really threatening, and we scored two very well created tries. Nick Newman was involved with a couple, but Nathan Conroy was influential, and we were just sort of getting through our sets really comfortably. And so that's really pleasing that we know that when we're so in that groove that we will threaten these teams and can score points. So that's definitely the sort of the positive side of it.
And I know you were hampered somewhat yesterday with the amount of sin bins that went against you. Three of them, if I remember correctly. What did you make of the sin binnings? Were they fair? Were they a bit unfair? How did you see them?
I thought they were unfair. I thought the first one in particular, which really disrupted our sort of rhythm and our flow in the game. Toby Richardson there, he's got stuck in a tackle. He can't get out because the player's holding him in. The referee gives away a penalty, so that's fine, okay, understand that. But then as he's getting up, Toby's sort of annoyed with himself, frustrated, and he's shouted, "I can't get out of the tackle." And then the referee just reaches straight for his pocket and gives a yellow and says it's dissent, which is harsh, because at that point we hadn't actually given away that many penalties, and I think it was to go straight to the yellow for that was very, very sort of questionable, really, because there's just as many sort of shouts and sort of dissenting voices from both teams throughout any game. So if you're going to give a yellow for that, you could give a yellow at pretty much every play of the ball. So that really disrupted us. The second one was in the second half, where the referee had given a team warning for penalties. So the back end of the first half, we'd started to sort of lose our sort of focus a little bit, and we gave three penalties in quick succession, I think. So the referee put us on a team warning, and that carried on it over into the second half, which I don't think anyone realised. And Hayden Freeman gave away a penalty on the line, and he was the recipient of the yellow purely because the team warning had carried on post half time break. And then the last one was probably fair to it. In all honesty, it was a high tackle from Kieran, which was probably warranted, but it was probably born out of some frustration from him in the way that the game had gone. So I think that one was probably the one that was fine, but by that point the damage had been done already.
Yeah. I guess another positive though, I mean, you mentioned it earlier, the fact that you are able to go and score a good number of tries on trips like this where previously you wouldn't have done. I mean, it feels like the team's clicking pretty well in attack, and it's just those sort of that last percentage in defence that feels like it might click into place. I mean, I guess one thing I wanted to ask you really was, it feels like this season has been here for quite a long time, and yet we're only a few games in because it's been so disrupted, and it continues to be disrupted over the next couple of weeks. We've got a week off before Skolars visit, and then potentially a month off after that. Do you feel like it almost would have been better to just start the season later and just get these games back to back to allow you to actually get these games out, learn from them, and implement them within a week, rather than having to wait a flexible amount of time between games to actually put into practice what you're learning? Yeah,
100%. I really, really agree with that, because our players are not full time, so they're not in that sort of mindset every hour of every day. It's not what they do day in, day out. And while we do train to a good high intensity, over a period of 2 weeks, you can lose your focus a little bit, and we need to be better at making sure that we don't allow that to happen, because it's just the season is what it is, and the fixtures are what we've been given, and we need to be able to deal with it and make the most of the time off. But yeah, you want, as a player and as a coach and as any sports person, you want the opportunity to right wrongs and to improve and to make amends to come as soon as possible. So if you're having to wait 2 weeks, every 2 weeks, then it's difficult to build an momentum. And that would be the same if we were winning games.
Yeah.
You want to win games and just roll straight into the next match and use that momentum. But it's the same thing if you're losing. It doesn't allow you that chance to put things right. But as I said, it's what we've been served up, so we just need to take it in our stride as best we can and not use it as an excuse, because on the flip side of that, it means that we've got chance for some focused work on some of these things that we're not getting right, and a chance for injuries to heal up and things like that. So there's pros and cons to it, but I think overall it doesn't help. But yeah, we need to just put that out of our mind, really.
Yeah. And just lastly, I mentioned obviously the next game is the visit of Skolars to the Butts Park Arena. First home game since February. That's on Good Friday. How excited are you for that? Because that feels like a game that at the start of the season the Bears probably would have looked at as one definitely wanting to, as a target to win. They're coming into this game off the back of a fantastic result themselves from last weekend. It should be a really tasty encounter. It feels apt that the club have billed it the Battle of the South. It feels like a big one. Yeah, definitely. And for the reason we just mentioned, we're itching to get into that game regardless of who we're playing. But I think with the way the league's set up now, it's probably the closest we come to a sort of a local derby these days. So we've always had really close encounters with Skolars, and there's a lot of sort of rivalries. There's a lot of players that have gone back and forth between the two teams. So and also the way that the season's panned out for us, obviously winning the first couple and losing the last three, this is a must-win game for us, as close as it's going to come to a must-win anyway at this early point in the season. So we're going to be making sure that we're putting everything into winning this, and I'm sure that Skolars will be looking to build on that win against Workington. That was a great win for them, and shows what they're capable of, and that they're probably similar to us, that on their day they can beat any team in the division. It's just a case of stringing some wins together, and so we'll be looking to do that. They'll be looking to do that, and it should be a big encounter. Great stuff. Well, look forward to seeing you on Good Friday, and hoping that it is indeed a Good Friday for the Bears, and get back on the winning track. But thanks as always for your time, Tom. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Dave. No problem. So huge thanks to Tom for joining us as always and for giving his thoughts on the game. So Craig, I know neither of us were actually at the stadium in Doncaster to watch this in person, but it doesn't really take too much detective work to realise some of the things that probably went wrong for the team on Sunday. Obviously the sin binnings didn't help, although as Tom was saying there, 2 of the 3 were probably a little harsh, but it comes down to what we've been talking about a lot. It's signs of an inexperienced young team still working out how to grind these games out, and still working out how to react properly when things perhaps don't go their way, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, I've spoken to a couple of people who were at the game, and the Bears were fantastic for the first 30 minutes and much the better team. But then apparently what could go wrong did go wrong, and it all fell apart. And you're going to get some harsh calls sometimes against you, and that unfortunately does seem to happen in League One, and we've seen it happen to the Bears quite a lot over the last couple of seasons. But it's how you react to that, and going down to 11 men, doesn't matter who you are, whether you're the top team in the league or one of the strugglers, you're never going to be able to compete with a top team like Doncaster when you're in that sort of position. And in credit to the Bears, actually, I think it ended up being a reasonably respectable scoreline, considering they were missing players for 30 minutes of the game, with 3 sin binnings in total. So it's one of those things, as you say. I think partly comes down to experience, possibly a little bit of frustration as well, because actually the guys are starting to believe, I think, that they can compete with the top teams in the league. and they've shown it in periods, in large periods of games this season, that they can compete. As I said, they're pretty much were the better team in the first half against Doncaster. We're leading for large proportions of the first half. We saw similar issues in other games this season as well, where they've competed for large periods of time. So I sense a little bit of frustration maybe with the players, particularly if they're when they know that they've been playing well and things just haven't gone for them. But again, this is a learning curve. There's a lot of these guys. I've only played really a handful of games in League One, and they will get better. They'll get more experienced, and they'll get that extra sort of know-how that teams like Doncaster have. And they'll learn to adapt as well. I mean, possibly another issue. I mean, the Doncaster pack is massive. It's always difficult playing against teams with a massive pack. And you can lose your discipline sometimes when you're up against a big team like that. So I wouldn't be too disheartened by that performance. Doncaster, one of the favourites to go up and be promoted, and they've had a reasonable start to the season, and I think the Bears competing with them for large portions of the game really bodes well for upcoming fixtures.
I guess the frustrating thing for fans and players alike probably is that when you see them not just competing with but outgunning teams like Doncaster for periods like that first half an hour, it becomes really clear that just how close the Bears are to being able to pull off wins against these teams. And they're really not that far off, are they? I mean, we saw it against Newcastle. No. We saw it at times last season, and it just feels like there's just a couple of things to click, and the Bears will be a real threat to anyone in the league. How much of that do you think could be down to this stop-start nature of the season that we've had at the moment? I mean, thinking back to when you played, I guess you preferred to just know that whatever happened on a weekend, you could either build on it or right any wrongs the week after, and the Bears are just not getting that chance to build any momentum right now, aren't they?
I mean, we discussed it last week, and I think Tom's mentioned it in his interview as well. I mean, whether you win or whether you lose, the last thing you want is a long break between games, particularly individual players. If you're a player and you've had a particularly bad game, the last thing you want is to think, I've got 3 weeks to wait till the next match now. It just adds to the tension that they've got, and if you've had a good game and you're on top form, you want to be playing every week. You want to be, getting stuck into the opposition as quickly as soon as possible. You don't want to be playing one game, waiting 3 weeks, playing a game, then waiting 2 weeks. It's just not good for the players. It's not good for. I don't think it's good for team morale. You want to be, You want to be playing matches. You don't want to be training all the time and thinking, I've got to wait 3 weeks for a game. So, again, we've got another 2 week break. The Bears will be wanting to get the Doncaster game out of their system, but they've have to wait 2 weeks to play Skolars. So, yeah, it's not ideal at all. You could argue, I guess, other teams are equally affected, but the Bears did have the postponed game against Workington, which would have been a home game. I think, how many weeks is it? 10 weeks without a home game for the Bears, which I mean, if you look at it, I think the Bears have a chance of winning a large proportion of their home games this year. Going away is more of a struggle. A lot of the away trips are quite, there's quite a distance to travel. A lot of teams have very good home support. It's always difficult going away and getting a result against some of the top teams in the league. But the Bears will be a match for anyone at home. And to not have a home game for 10 weeks is really difficult. I mean, it must be hard for Tom and the coaching staff to keep the guys motivated. Let's hope they can put that right in the next game. And we actually have a home game coming up. It feels like ages. I mean, what was it, February?
It was the end of February, yeah.
Yeah. freezing cold in February when the Bears last played at home. So it's not great, it's not ideal, but we do have. I guess the laughable thing is, after all this stop-start, we then have nearly a month's break after the Skolars game until the next match. But at least then it kind of kicks in, and there's nearly a match every week for about sort of 10 to 12 weeks. There's nearly a match every single week. So, but yeah, it's not great. I mean, as I said, when you're playing and you've put all the effort into training, you just want to be out playing every week. You don't want to have them, fitness wise and everything else. It's got to be difficult for players having a 3-week break and then going in playing a real physical game against some of the top teams. So.
Definitely. Well, at least one thing we know now, we don't have to make any more trips to Doncaster this season, which is good. And I'm sure by the time Doncaster...
Possibly a playoff game.
I suppose. Yes, I'm being unnecessarily pessimistic there, but at the moment, no more trips to Doncaster. And of course, by the time Doncaster come down to Coventry, as you say, we will have had a bit more of a regular season, and hopefully the Bears will be able to match them for even longer than 30 minutes, if not the whole game, and who knows, even better them. So let's move on to that next game then. We'll get onto the game itself in a moment, but first of all, so the club are using this game, which is taking place on Good Friday. That's the 19th of April at the Butts Park Arena, 3 p.m. kickoff. But they are billing this game as a bit of a European City of Sport takeover, and they're trying to attract local businesses to come in and learn about the club, learn about the Rugby League World Cup, learn about Tri-Tag Rugby. Just loads of really, as always with the Bears, innovative, interesting, creative stuff. So Craig, we'll talk about that in a minute, but first I think we'll play your interview that you did with Bears CEO Alan Robinson this week, because that just gives a bit more context about what the Good Friday game is all about. So let's listen to that and then we'll jump back in.
So Alan, no game next week for the Bears, but we've got some really exciting stuff happening on Good Friday. The Battle of the South, a game against Bears' old rivals, London Skolars, and there's lots of other stuff going on the day as well, isn't there?
Yeah, it's an idea I had. We wanted to generate a little bit of interest around the game. It's a big game. It's got real bragging rights. We've had some fantastic rivalries and stories against Skolars down the years, and I thought, how can we reignite that? We should use that to our advantage, really, to market the game and promote the game and generate a bit more interest for the supporters. It's been difficult the last few weeks with a couple of games away. We're really disappointed that we had to postpone the Workington game, but we just had to get on with it, and it's been difficult since then. But we're really going to be focusing on Good Friday. It's a massive game for us on and off the field.
And you're doing a link in with the City of Sport and Chamber of Commerce for this game. So I understand anyone who's a Chamber of Commerce member can get free tickets for an event before the game, and then can stay and watch the match afterwards as well.
Yeah, it's a great time to try and engage with local businesses. We're about a third way through the season at the moment, but the European City of Sport approached us about a takeover game, and we had that in the diary now for a little while. So we thought, how can we tie that in with an initiative to perhaps engage a bit more with the city? So we decided to utilise that day and that link with the European City of Sport and the City Council to link in with Coventry Warwickshire Chamber of Commerce and the Coventry Business District. And also Coventry and Warwickshire Tri-Tag Rugby that we've been working with, and it's been really successful. So, yeah, it's an opportunity for businesses to come. Free tickets to the game. They can come along on Good Friday. They can bring their work colleagues along. If they're members of the Chamber of Commerce or the Business District, they can just apply for free tickets through Eventbrite. That link's on the website. It's a great opportunity for people to come along, find out about what the Bears are doing, find out what we're doing in the community, as well as with the League One side, and engage with us, see what rugby league's all about, and coming into the summer, we want to raise our profile, and we thought that was a perfect opportunity.
Yeah, and you mentioned Tag. I believe there'll be a bit of a demonstration exhibition game going on beforehand, and people can give that a go if they want to come down and have a look and see what that's all about as well. That's happening as well, isn't it?
Yeah, the Tag Rugby franchise has been really successful locally. We've been engaging with that. There's been a lot of rugby clubs and people that have been engaged with just general fitness in the area that have been getting involved in that, and it's proved really successful. I think we probably have about 12 teams registered now for the early summer league in Coventry. Tag's also launched in Leamington and Solihull in the next few weeks. Actually, this week I think there's some tasters. But on Good Friday, it'll be an opportunity for our supporters and local businesses to come and have a look, see what it's all about. It's a great sport, great way of engaging people in sport, getting them active, and we thought that again it was an opportunity to show local businesses how they can engage with local sport, and it was a great fit for the European City of Sport, and they liked the idea of that too. So really looking forward to a real bumper day at the Butts, and hopefully everyone will engage in it.
Yeah, I have to say I'm massively looking forward to the game. I love the graphics and the design of the promotional materials. There is only sadly two big teams left in the south now in League One, ourselves and Skolars, and as I said, that's always a tough game and going to be a really good day, I'm sure.
Yeah, I've played in some of those games myself back in the day. Some of the games against Skolars we've played in semi-finals, in grand finals. They're a long-standing club. I think we were founded 3 or 4 years just after them. I think it was 95. The Skolars were founded. I know some of their guys very well that run their club, and we thought what a great opportunity really to keep that rivalry going. That's what we've got to be doing, things like that. We've got to be keeping those rivalries, keeping those the heritage there. We're trying to build that. We're on our journey, as Skolars are on their journey, and we've got to be making something of that. And I think both sets of supporters should get excited about that, and we're really looking forward to it.
Yeah, and me. Thanks, Al, for your time, and I'll see you in 10 days' time on Good Friday, 3 o'clock kickoff, I believe, isn't it?
Yeah, 3 o'clock. Yeah, thanks, Greg.
All right.
Okay, so thanks to Alan for joining us and talking us through all the plans for the Good Friday game. So Craig, before we get onto the game itself, this European City of Sport takeover and this focus on local businesses, it's just showing once again that the Bears, they're creative in how they market the games, and they really are committed to spreading the brand and the club in the city, aren't they? It's a really great initiative, this one.
Yeah, and I think it stems from some earlier initiatives and things like, for example, the Challenge Cup draw being in Coventry. From what I gather, there was some interest from local businesses, from the Chamber of Commerce, City of Sport, and others on having a bit of a get together at a Bears game and seeing what it's all about, because they are considered as a Coventry team, one of the Coventry sports teams, and do have connections with people in the community and across the council, and the link up with the City of Sport as well is excellent. So let's hope we get a decent turnout for that. There's going to be potentially people coming to watch the first ever Bears game, and I'm sure they're going to really enjoy it. And from what I gather as well, it's free tickets for anyone who's a member of the Chamber of Commerce. So no reason not to come along. It's a Good Friday. No one, well, apart from the unlucky ones, no one should be in work. And it'll be a really good match, a really close, hard fought game as well, and really there should be hopefully a bumper crowd at the butts as well.
Yes, and for those who are perhaps listening who are in a local business, part of the Coventry Business District or Chamber of Commerce, all the details for the free ticket offer are on the Bears website, coventrybears.com. There's a link there to book your tickets via Eventbrite and all details about how you can find out more about it from the club and all of that stuff. So get on the Bears website, get your tickets booked, bring your colleagues down for some rugby league, and bring them down to enjoy the Battle of the South, which is how we are dubbing this game against the London Skolars. So Craig, it's always a bit of a ding dong between the Bears and the Skolars. Last year we won down in London, and Skolars sort of managed to scuttle away from Coventry with a scrappy, somewhat controversial victory from Coventry last year. I just remember them delaying things an awful lot and not really playing in the spirit of the game. They're coming into this off the back of a good win. But I'm feeling like, well, we're obviously due a Bears home game, that goes without saying, but I'm really feeling like we're due a Bears win, and I think this is a point of the season where Bears get their third win of the season and keep up that 50-50 record in terms of the league campaign. What are you thinking about this one?
Yeah, it'll be a tough one. It always is against Skolars. I mean, I think on the overall head-to-head record, well, certainly since League One, I think Skolars have the slight edge. I think, as you mentioned, last year Bears 1-1, Skolars 1-1. I think the year before Skolars got the bragging rights and won both games. This year it'll be, I think the teams are very evenly matched. There was bizarrely a bit of, I guess, a few fans from Skolars were a bit disappointed with the early season form, but their last couple of home games they drew with Keighley and beat Workington. That to me is a pretty good record. Workington are one of the favourites to be promoted, so and finished I think third last year. So that's a very good result for Skolars. Them and the Bears have both had good results against some top teams this year at home, and it will be I would imagine a ding dong battle. I think Skolars are. I think the one thing I would say about them is that, and I think they really do, they usually surprise northern teams with this, is that I think some northern teams, the perception is that teams from the south are not, might not be so difficult to play against, but Skolars are a big, tough team to play against. They do spoil around the play of the ball. They got some big lads in the forwards. So yeah, it's going to be a tough game. They've also got quite a lot of talent out wide. So I would expect a real ding dong battle, a real good game. Both teams. I think the weather's looking dry between now and next Friday. I think it'll be a dry pitch at the Butts Park Arena. There'll be plenty of running rugby. It's going to be a top game, I think.
Yeah. I remember last season's game at the Butts, and the Bears were in front for most of it, and they were getting most of their joy from playing the brand of rugby that we know Tom Tsang and his players like to play. So shifting it wide, using their pace, and keeping it away from those big guys in the middle. And obviously we've not seen the Skolars squad in real life this year, but it feels like that's going to be a good bet for the Bears again. I mean, they showed against Newcastle and against West Wales that they can run in tries from wherever, and they can finish them well. So, like you say, if the weather holds out, it's getting to that time of year now where the ground should suit the Bears' style of rugby, shouldn't it? Hopefully we're past days like the trip to Keighley a few weeks ago, and the weather will hold out and allow the Bears to really show off what they can do.
Yeah, and I think another. I mean, it is. I think Al mentioned it in his interview. It's as close to a derby game as we get now. Sadly, with Hemel and Oxford pulling out of the league, Skolars and the Bears are the two holdouts in the south. Really, both clubs going about things in the right way. They've both been building gradually over and steadily. Skolars have put down roots in London and are very much a part of the community down there, and they've got a great academy and junior setups down there. There's if you look at both lineups, it's likely that there will be potentially one or two ex-Bears in the Skolars lineup. I know Mal Lloyd-Jones is playing there this year. The Bears have got a couple of lads who've also played for Skolars, so there's potentially a bit of niggle there as well. So, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's always a good game against Skolars, and you know, I think both sets of supporters, there's a lot of respect there as well. So yeah, should be a really good day.
So let's have it then. Let's go for predictions. I'm going Bears win by 12 points.
Yeah, I think I'm thinking it's going to be a fairly high scoring game. I think a Bears win by 10, possibly something ridiculous like 40 points to 30.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. I think it's high scoring game. I think both teams are going to go for it.
Great stuff. Well, we'll be there to see it, all being well, and hopefully loads of you lot listening will too, and obviously will all be those business people from the city as well. So looking forward to the Battle of the South, and looking forward to seeing the Bears make a real impression on anyone who's coming along for the first time. 3 p.m. on Good Friday. That's Friday the 19th of April. Do come along to the Butts Park Arena and join in with the Battle of the South, and we'll be back after that game to bring yours a reaction and analysis from it, and then we'll try and work out what on earth we're going to do for that month off. We might just take a month off as well, but we'll confirm that a bit nearer the time. So Craig, thank you as always. And of course, for everyone listening, of course, CovBearsPodcast.com is where you can find all our previous episodes and links to where you can subscribe to us. And thanks as always to York's Tim for sponsoring the show. But yeah, Craig, I'm looking forward to seeing you at the Battle of the South.
Thank you, mate. Cheers.
Let battle commence.